All right, Nick Caserio speaks. We're 10 days away from the draft. It's time for the locker room, joined by Patrick Storm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the locker room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey, locker room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk. Yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize every angle is what we really do. We the source. We the post.
All right, so business is picking up. It's in a perfect world, you have a better grasp of what's going on. It feels like the speculation now is higher than it's been. Let's get to the bottom of it. I got Patrick Storm here. Patrick, appreciate you for hopping on. I was telling you before we got ready for this that when I see someone lay down a bunt at a young age, it makes me feel all hot and tingly. So I see a lot of baseball videos posted consistently. Usually it's a boring home run or, strikeout or something like that. When I see someone lay down a bunt, it makes me feel some type of way.
Yeah, it definitely was it was fun, man. I was if you go back and watch the video, I'm the first base coach. I smacked him in the back of the helmet because I was so hyped up. So
Yeah,
it was fun.
that's what's up, man. So Nick Caserio spoke today. We've talked about the rumors. Before we get into what he said about the rumors, what did you think about the rumors as a whole? Because my whole thing has been we haven't heard any leaks or anything in the last 2 years, like with the Texans. I mean, for the most part, we really haven't heard it, and we started hearing this noise. What did you think about the rumors as a whole?
Man, when it first started, I was pretty caught off guard, right? Like that's you think this team's finally kind of heading in the right direction after years of dysfunction, and then all of a sudden you get the right coach in here, hopefully, and tons of draft capital heading into the draft, and around the time of the combine, you start to hear that there's a potential that he's headed back to New England, and it just kind of makes you like, I mean, what the hell? Like we're back to the past 3-4 years of everything just not going right for this team. So just started asking around, and it was weird because a lot of people heard the same stuff, and eventually just kind of had to wait it out and see what was going to happen. So
Yeah, I thought it was weird, but I also thought a lot of like when as far as the Lombardi part, because I was hearing like stuff like just text messages and stuff like on the back, like, you know, the Nick Caserio might feel this way. But the Lombardi stuff to me, like, and it's one thing for me to say, there's it's noise because, I think this is the time of the year where you enjoy the noise and just take it for what it is. Don't let it drive you too crazy. But a lot of the stuff that Lombardi said, I mean, it was interesting, but a lot of it was like common sense. Like, yeah, it's different for Nick Caserio. It's, he's never been in this situation. Like D'Amico Ryans is a little bit more powerful than David Culley and Lovie Smith. So when I heard that, a lot of it was just, oh, they're going to meet after the draft. Like I know Lopez was trying to like say, oh, they're going to have a meeting after the draft. Why would they not? So a lot of it
yeah,
just seemed like kind of common sense with the Lombardi thing, but I just don't. It doesn't feel like it. I mean, I don't know how Caserio feels about it, but just the fact that it's uncomfortable for him, I would hope so. He hasn't done it.
yeah, yeah. There was, it just like you said when Lombardi was talking. Given their past relationship with working together and stuff like that, I was like, okay, maybe there is some substance to it, but like until it went like with Mike Silver putting out something that he had started hearing names, which I was talking with some people and we had heard similar names. It was just like, okay, maybe now it's real, but it just never gained any like real traction. And then John McClain went out and said that he's not leaving, so just kind of felt that at that point that it was dead.
And then we'll figure out what happens on the next one. Let's just get Caserio's reaction because he started out the press conference on it. If y'all have the comments, put them in. Patrick Storm is in the building. We're 10 days away from the draft. We're going to ask the question, what is in the best interest of the Texans? But first, let's hear from Caserio kind of coming out. He always has to sound like offended that he's even addressing it when he needed to address it. But here is Caserio.
Before we take any questions, quite frankly, I'm almost embarrassed that I have to say anything. I mean, honestly, I feel like Leonardo DiCaprio in The Wolf of Wall Street. But I'm not leaving. There's never really been any substantive discussions of the sort. Um, Grateful and appreciative of the opportunity that my family and I have here in Houston. Um, we understood when we arrived, when we got here, that there was a lot of work to be done. And I think when you look across the NFL landscape, there's work to be done in every organization. And I think we've made some progress where we still have a lot of work in front of us. Certainly, it's been a joy to work with D'Amico in concert as we build the team and continue to build the staff. Unfortunately, I think this time of year, there's a lot of information and a lot of topics that are discussed. Some are more accurate than others, and I think it transcends multiple landscapes. But I can't. I'm honestly, I'm almost embarrassed that I have to say anything, but I feel like I have an obligation to to make that statement. Really try to stay ahead of it. And really, I mean, I don't think there's anything else to talk about or to say or any question about it. Again, appreciative of the opportunity that we have here. Very grateful. And my philosophy and goal is just try to do the best job that I can for the people in this organization, in this building, for the city. And as long as ownership approves of what we're trying to do, then certainly their support is welcomed.
Okay, so he answered that. I gotta say, as like the self-proclaimed podium critic, and I love press conferences. Like I always have. My dad would we'd stay up late and watch press conferences for some reason. I just like press conferences. I'm that guy. I know they can get pretty boring, and there were some boring moments there, but was he accepting an Oscar or something at the start of that press conference? Like he named, he thanked everyone and all that. I didn't know what was going on there for a minute. Does he feel like there's not like enough appreciation or what? Like he went down, he mentioned Scout Goodhair, he mentioned all the other scouts and stuff. That felt weird. But then we got to the meet, and there's some other stuff from there that I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah, the start of it was a little bit different. When he's naming off everybody, George Panos, Lipford, all those guys. Um, I don't know if I've ever seen like a pre-draft press conference where that's happened. And he'll name drop guys from time to time that depending on what's going on, but just going there and just thanking everybody, like you said, like he was accepting an Oscar, it was kind of different.
It was different, and he mentioned Lifford. I wanted to ask you because you kind of like this side of things a lot more, and I always like hearing your like insight on like scouting and stuff like that. Seems like you kind of pay attention to that side of things. Um, when you hear 20%, typically you just say, okay, you assume it's a small chunk, no matter what someone's taken, what someone's talking about. But when Lippert said that D'Amico and them they tweaked 20% of the board when he came through, does that seem like a large percentage for a coach to come in and tweak? Is it moderate? Some people say 20%, but I mean, if we're talking about you're grading 300 guys or something like that, like that's moving around 60 players. Did
Yeah,
that seem
that's
like
a
a
lot.
lot? Yeah, I
Yeah,
thought I thought it seemed like that too.
yeah, it seems like an awful lot, especially considering where they're, the amount of time these guys have already spent throughout the year scouting players and doing visits and watching the games and then rewatching film over and over again. And when you're talking, you're moving around 20% or taking 60, 30, 40 guys off your board potentially and adding 30 or 40 other people, upwards of 60. That's a lot. That's a lot of movement. That's a lot more homework that guys have to revisit, redo. So that's it was a very interesting tidbit that Lippert said.
Yeah, and I don't think he was. I mean, I don't think he was saying anything bad. I mean, he was just telling us, that they tweaked 20%. What do you make of like the notion that like if there's a disagreement in the room, like let's say there's a disagreement and D'Amico's on one side of the table, Caserio's on the other side of the table, and they just strongly disagree. Who does the tie go to? Who do you think the tie goes to? Or did they just have? I mean, I guess they just have to talk it out. But my thing today, and I think this is like the best way I could say what I've been saying, and I'm sometimes not very good with words, which kind of sucks given what my job is. But but I think that I've said the tie should go to D'Amico because I don't think he should have a quarterback forced on him. And there'll be people that say, well, do you want Bill O'Brien back or what? No, I don't want that. And I don't think D'Amico wants that. But my thing is this, like with the way things are right now, and I've never once criticized Nick Caserio for any coach he hired. Like I think the Cully and Lovey stuff has played out. I was more open to McCown than most, but of any criticism of Nick Caserio, I'm not one of these guys who says he hired 2 coaches, so he needs to do, this or he screwed up. I don't believe that. But I do believe that the best way I can look at it is the one thing that Nick Caserio is not going to do is he's not going to fire D'Amico Ryans. Like if those guys part ways, it's going to be because Caserio gets fired and then they hire a new GM, or they both get fired after a few years, or they ride off into the sunset together or something like that, or Caserio dips out. So that based on that, I just wonder like if Caserio and I'm not saying that Cal has to come in there and say, hey, Nick, this is D'Amico's gonna like kids pulling hair. You have kids, so like kids pulling hair, and daddy has to come in there and say that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like even Caserio has to kind of have some sort of idea that I can't just throw these guys at him because his shelf life's a little bit longer than mine.
Yeah, and I think they've got to, if it comes to the disagreement on a quarterback, like they've got to kind of default to Slowick, right? Like they got to bring him in and ask his opinion because he's going to ultimately be the one that's running the show on the offensive side of the ball. And if I feel like it's at that point, it's kind of got to be the majority. If Slowick is on the same page as Nick or in the scouts on what what they're advising, then unfortunately D'Amico is going to have to take the back seat on that. But if they bring a quarterback to Slowick and he's like, nah, man, I don't know about it. Like I just don't see the potential long term. Then I think Nick would be doing them a disservice to, just be like, well, too bad it's my way that this is who we're going with. They've got to, at the end of the day, the product that's going to be on the field has got to be, what those guys are going to be calling, and they've got to work with it. So I think that, they've got to be professionals about it and work through it. Like,
And they will.
Immediate. Yeah.
They will. So what did you just mentioned the quarterbacks. I'll just put you on the spot. If you had to rank your quarterbacks, what would be 1 through 4?
So can I do a 1A and 1B? Because I feel like
1A,
that's what
1B.
1A, 1B has got to be Bryce and CJ.
Okay.
3, Anthony Richardson, and 4, Will Levis.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's a very distant 4 for me.
Yeah. And I've heard a lot of people who feel the same way about Levis being like way distant when it comes to 4. So I'm Bryce, and then CJ, and then I'm just, if we're talking 2, I'm kind of scared. I'm kind of scared of the CJ thing, but given the fact that you have 1A, 1B, I'm assuming your take CJ Stroud.
Yeah.
But the other mindset, like of the quarterback, because I understand like both mindsets of, you want to find a quarterback, and I understand you don't want to rush. I do wonder because I've talked about experience with D'Amico, and I've talked about how, he was there in 2017. He was there in 2021 when they were going to take a quarterback no matter what. And they got to Lance, and Slowick was there too. And he's kind of the film guy. And in 2017, they had the 2nd overall pick and they passed. I also today, because I did a mock draft in Las Vegas with the Raiders, and I picked CJ Stroud. And my reason was I talked about all that, but maybe like D'Amico looks at Robert Saleh and says, they missed on number 2. They had multiple draft picks, but as long as you're doing everything else well, there's really not like a major consequence for missing on Zach Wilson. You're still kind of a quarterback away. So maybe he looks at the Zach Wilson thing as like, okay, well, I can swing for the fences at number 2. Maybe. Don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if D'Amico's really going to compare the 2 situations, given everything that, with how New York has unfolded. I feel like the situations are a little bit different. I feel like New York had a little bit better foundation at the time, but they just continued to just the turnover on their roster has been a lot worse than what Houston has here recently. So I don't know if D'Amico would have that kind of a mindset, but I mean, I could see it. It's somebody that he trusts and looks up to. He may be on the phone with him for advice on how to handle the situation too. So,
Rotten Oxford wants to know, and get your questions in. If they're topical, we'll get to them in the flow. If they're not, we'll get to them at the end. And I have to get you drinks or something because Matt's throwing all this, throwing some cheddar. So next time whenever you're in town, I gotta take care of it. Rotten Oxford wants to know, can you talk about AR having a 30 visit with the Texans? Aaron Wilson reported that it was canceled, but you said he had one, not saying either is wrong, confused.
So the list that I've been putting out and all the information I've been putting out is all off of Walter Football. So, and like, pulling off like when the reports or the visitor reported and stuff like that. So I haven't been able to keep up with all of them. If Aaron put out that they canceled it, then I missed it. So
You can't keep up with these visits anyways. We do
they're
know
all
the
over the
process.
place.
John Crumpler, look at can you do something about this bow tie, Crumpler? Like this is like you look like Pee Wee Herman. I don't know what we're doing here. Crumpler says you're in the same place if you miss on a QB. If you hit on these edge rushers, take a swing. Are you a take a swing, or could you see a scenario where you feel okay with them passing on a quarterback?
I think I've been on the idea of passing on a quarterback for a few months actually. I've just kind of accepted that it's a definite possibility and that they may go that route.
Brown Chubby Bear's crazy ass says if they weren't happy with Stroud and they wanted Bryce, why wouldn't they trade up for Bryce? Well, there were reports that they wanted to. So maybe they kind of dropped the ball. Maybe they didn't want to give up what was being asked. But Peter King, as soon as Peter King names, the GM by name, I assume that they actually were thinking about trading up. So I would say that, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like the prices had to be outrageous for them to not want to trade up and, not have shown that they were beat to the punch, right? Like if they were in talks as reported with Chicago to get up there and they let Carolina beat them out, then that's just another bad look for Nick. So I don't know if they really want to admit that.
What did you make of Nick's free agent philosophy?
I thought it was good. I mean, they've had some really damn good signings. I mean, Dalton Schultz alone, Devin Singletary. You just added two really good pieces of the offense without spending a ton of money. I mean, Dalton Schultz's contract is I think there's a couple void years in there, so the money's spread out. And it's one that I believe, if I read Troy's reports right or his recaps right, that they have the ability to extend them out and keep it on the team friendly side. So I think all in all they did really good, and there wasn't a whole lot of questionable signings this year as maybe like his first year here.
Yeah, I had no issue with the free agency. I mean, I think it's actually the perfect plan. Like, and the 2-year contracts, like, come on, like, there's guys who get 6-year contracts, 5-year contracts, and they're gone after a couple of years. So I really didn't have too much of an issue with that. AA asks, do you feel that if the Texans were to pass on a QB, they would be in good position without tanking to steal May or Caleb next year? I mean, let me put it this way. They're not going to steal either one of those guys. Like it's going to be, you're probably going to see that coming. But if they were to think a year down the line, are you more of a trade out of 2, or are you more of a draft Will Anderson and then figure it out next year? Draft Will Anderson, Tyree Wilson, whoever.
I think it depends on how they value that pick. Like if they see the value in trading down and getting more assets, and for potentially next year to use in the draft, then I'm all for trading out. But if they've got their heart set on one of those guys, if it's Anderson or Tyree, and they feel like they can make an immediate impact and for the long term of the team, then why not take them? I mean, it's an investment for the future. So
yeah, I mean, it's you're looking a year down the line. I do wonder if they don't draft. I've been really talking stopgap quarterbacks lately, whether taking Jimmy G back in a Raiders trade, which by the way, Raiders fans want freaking Stroud, man. Like it's not all like they can't all agree on anything, but they freaking want Stroud badly. with the Raiders. I don't think they were happy that they got Jimmy G. I think it was kind of the same type of thing now. But I do wonder if that comes up. Cap asks about in-division trades, even if a QB is involved. How do you feel about in-division trades? And off the top of my head, I've seen a couple in my lifetime. I know McNabb was traded from the Eagles to the Washington R words, and then Bledsoe was traded from the Patriots to the Bills, which Caserio was there. So there have been like quarterbacks involved, but I'm assuming he's asking this with the motivation of potentially trading with maybe the Titans or the Colts.
I mean, I'm all for it, like, especially if it's the Titans, because they're going to have to give you a ton of draft capital. So all you're kind of doing is you're handicapping them to build out their future, especially the Titans where they're at. They look like they're headed for a pretty long rebuild. The Colts, I don't know. That's a tough one, just given the foundation that they have with the roster. But they have some guys that are getting older, so they may be headed for a rebuild as well. So if you can, again, kind of handicap them and put them in put them at a disadvantage long term, and build off of it, then why not?
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with it at
the
all.
thing for me is like I could understand you talking about, I don't want to trade Deshaun Watson to the freaking Colts or the
Yeah.
Titans because you thought it was awesome and you made him one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league, and it really wasn't your idea to get rid of him. But the Eagles thought McNabb was washed. They thought they had a better option in Vic. The Patriots had Tom Brady, so they got rid of Bledsoe in the division. And if you're in a position with Texans where you need a quarterback and you don't want this quarterback and you don't trust him in your situation, then why wouldn't you trade him to the Titans if you could get a haul similar to what, the Panthers got? So that's where I would be at it. Like if you thought CJ Stroud was going to haunt you, then why wouldn't you take him? Like you would like him.
Yeah.
So that would be like in that situation, that's where I would be a little bit open to it. I don't know how they feel about it, and I don't know how Tennessee feels about it, but you would basically be giving up someone that you didn't want.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you're not worried about him, if you wanted him bad enough, you'd put him on your roster. You're not worried about him on another team.
What is in the best interest of the Texans? We hear Nick Caserio say it. We heard Bill O'Brien say it all the time. Like at this point, what exactly is in the best interest of the Texans? It seems like we're kind of leaning towards not taking the quarterback. What would you say? Like if I asked you what's in the best interest of the Texans heading into the draft, what would you say?
They've just got to be 100% certain that whoever they're taking, if they stay at 2, whoever they're taking is going to be there and contribute for the next 10, 15 years. And in a positive manner to where it's going to, accelerate the franchise in an upward direction. If they don't feel that they have that guy at 2 on their board, then they got to get out and they got to trade down and look for someone else.
Yeah, I think not letting one mistake turn into 2. Like if you're frustrated that you didn't get Bryce Young, don't let that lead to you, forcing drafting a quarterback that you don't want. Like I think maybe outside noise could have contributed to D'Amico coming in, which is good. And I think Nick Caserio ended up liking him, but like outside noise should not impact what they do at number 2 at this point. I don't think they've gotten to that point yet. I think the fan base is relatively calm with the D'Amico thing. There'll be people ticked off that you don't take a quarterback, but the thing they can't do is that you can't reach for a quarterback. I hate the notion that you just have to get a quarterback without like saying the specific one. So I think that's what's important is not letting the frustration of not getting Bryce, assuming they like him, not letting that negatively impact them. Potential trade partners.
Yeah,
You mentioned the Titans. You mentioned the Tennessee Titans. I mentioned the Raiders. What are the potential trade partners? How far back would you go? Would you go to Washington or New England? Are we going that far back? Is there a line that you don't want to trade to back? Is there a guy that you don't want to miss out on? How far back we going?
I don't know if they want to get past 10. I feel like there's some really good players that they may not feel that are the right value at 2, but if they're back, say 7 or 8 range, then they feel a lot better about taking them, plus getting more assets. Because if you think about it, if you're going back to after 12, then the package that you're going to get back, the draft capital you're going to get back, or or even maybe a player, that's going to be tough for a team to give up to move up. I don't feel like there's a player ranked maybe in the top 10 right now that the teams in the 20s are going to value, or even in the teens that are going to value that highly enough to give up something of that magnitude to come up and get. So I think looking at it, you're probably maybe in the 7-8 range. I think Vegas is going to be your prime target if you're looking to trade back really.
Evo McSlapnuts asks, "What's the earliest you would take our AR-15 or Levis?"
I mean, I see the potential with AR-15 at 2. I know it may not be the immediate success that people are looking for. It's not, but I feel like the athleticism and everything like that that kid has is, it's off the charts. So taking him at 2 is great. I wouldn't even draft Will Levis at 12, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm not
So
a Levis guy. The AR thing is, I feel like he needed another year, man. Like that, I feel like he needed to be the big man on campus and carry the squad. And I don't think Jalen Hurts isn't Jalen Hurts if he doesn't, you know, spend that extra year developing at Oklahoma. I just felt like AR, and Allen did it too. Allen went back to school for an extra year. I just felt like he could have really, really used uh the extra year. So I don't think I would take either in the top 12. I would rather just adjust accordingly there. But I am intrigued because I do wonder which of these guys is going to fall. And every year we do this, we talk about, could Malik Willis go in the top 10? Is this guy going to go? Deshaun Kaiser, oh my God, like he's getting visits with teams in the top 10, and then these guys like fall like every year. I do wonder which of these guys is going to fall because it's just hard for me to imagine. I know we've talked about, 4 quarterbacks potentially in the top 10. Like one of these guys has got to fall. One of them.
yeah, it never goes according to what everybody expects it to do. I mean, you hear it all the time that teams are not valuing a certain player as much as the media or the fans are. So that's the beauty of the draft, man. Is it's so unpredictable.
Awesome. So great. It's so great. Do you prefer this format or do you prefer the old school? Man, the old school is fun. Like that was like draft party central. It was basically it was just an absolute F fest
Yeah,
for the 2 days. But I have kind of grown to where I like this, to where you can kind of just have Sunday to kind of take it all in now, a little bit. But I do miss the old format, maybe just because that's what I grew up on.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they've both got their positives, but
The old one, man, but you had to go to bed at flip. But this one, you're just ready to go. Um, what do you make of this Tyree Wilson versus Will Anderson talk? This seems to be Peter King threw it out there. He quoted like a top 10 coach. Kind of seems like we're getting in if they take Tyree Wilson at 2, man, this better be like retroactive clowny Khalil Mack type of thing where you just really drop a bomb. What do you make of this?
yeah. I mean, if they take Tyree at 2, I think there's going to be a lot of fans that are going to be really upset, man. They
Man,
just it's going to be nuts. Um, but who knows? I mean, it may work out, but I don't know. That's a big one. That's a big risk at 2. If they're to trade back and say like he's there at 7, if they trade it back with Vegas, if he somehow gets past Arizona, and falls to 7, and after they trade it back and he's sitting there, then okay, I feel like it's a little bit better. But taking something like that at 2, we've heard that Will Anderson is that dude. I mean, he's a two-time all SEC or whatever it is. I mean, that guy is off the charts. And I could see the value at 2. I don't know if agree with Tyree Wilson at 2.
that would probably be the biggest potential bomb, I would say. Like
Yeah,
realistic-ish type of bomb would be Tyree, and immediately you got people talking about ceilings and stuff like that. It's just the beauty of the draft. So we have a media type showdown here.
it's been
Adam
great.
Schefter versus Ian Rappaport. Seems like they've been beefing a little bit, doesn't it? Doesn't it seem
Yeah,
like there's
yeah.
like a little bit more beef with these guys? They're willing to go toe to toe. So Rapp went on McAfee today, and Rapp said Texans taking a quarterback. Based on the information I've gathered, I think the Texans are taking a quarterback. Schefter says the Texans aren't taking a quarterback. In fact, he basically said that he thinks Indianapolis might have a crack at the second best quarterback at 4. Who do we trust here? Because there used to be a time where you could play follow the source and you could say, okay, Peter King's getting all this information from people in the building. Who do you trust? Do you trust Shefty or do you trust Rapp?
Right now, I gotta go with Rapp just because of how he was during the whole hiring process. He never once ruled out the potential of D'Amico coming in. And I feel like there was a lot of other talking heads out there. I don't mean to call them talking heads, but other national media out there that immediately ruled out D'Amico. But Ian just kind of had this sense about him that he felt like that was going to be the way to go, or that was the way it was going to go. And I don't feel like you have that kind of that conviction unless you're kind of feeling some stuff, or hearing some stuff too.
Yeah, and they all hear a lot of stuff, both of those guys, and I love the I love the whole beef. What's your biggest must that you think needs to happen for the Texans? They need to come away with the draft with blank, and let's not say center just for the sake of this. We don't have to say center. I think we agree on that. Outside of center, what is and outside of quarterback, what is the one thing that you think they need to come away with?
Either a wide receiver or a linebacker. And I feel really strongly about the linebacker, and I think you know that.
You're a linebacker. You've been trying to sign and trade for every badass linebacker that's been on the market.
Yeah, I mean, you've already got Christian Harris, and we saw some really good things out of him. But I feel like you need to couple him with somebody that's another young linebacker that's athletic, that can play in some coverage, that can get after the quarterback if you need it, and that can stop the run. And I feel like that'll really help this defense. We haven't had that tandem really at that position since D'Amico and Cushing, really. And I hate that we've been going through these guys that I know, like Jalen Petrie just got, off the insane amount of tackles last year. And that scares the hell out of me just because, I don't want him putting a ton of wear on his body because he doesn't have anybody that's in front of him that can just, that can pick up a tackle. So linebackers, I feel like one of the biggest needs on this team.
That's how I felt about safety for a few years. That's where I was, outside of the 1 year with Tyron. I don't think Tyron really completely had his feet under him when he was here. He had a good year, but I think he kind of started getting his groove a little bit more in Kansas City, and they used him a little bit more. But that's how I used to feel about safety. I think Harris is going to be a good player, but I'm with you. They need some more. They need some more talent at linebacker. It just doesn't seem like a real deep linebacker draft, which sometimes is where you can catch a little bit of a surprise. I know, but you were on Roquan, you were on Wagner, and then I think Devin asked for a trade, and I think you're down with Devin. I think you just need, you're not down with Devin.
I'm okay with it depending on the price, man. Especially if he's going to want another payday,
He's going to want Roquan bread, I'm sure.
Yeah, then it's just not worth it to me. I mean, Roquan and Bobby Wagner. I'm surprised Bobby Wagner went back to Seattle for what he did, but Roquan was definitely worth the money, and I feel like that's a perennial player right there. That's somebody you can build your defense around, and so I really wanted Bobby Wagner. It didn't work out, and Devin White would have to come at the right price and a hell of a deal on the contract because he's going to want to get paid.
What does your wideout list look like? Because that is a eek position right now.
Yeah.
What's your wideout list at?
I mean, it's as far as in the draft.
Yeah,
I think Jackson Smith and Jigba, or some of the people on Twitter are calling him like Jesus Christ and Jigba or something like that. They've got some crazy nicknames for him already. And then I like Zay Flowers. I'm a big believer in A.T. Perry on day 2.
Okay.
There's just something about the kid watching this film. He's just got this just swagger and this confidence about him. I feel like he's going to be that guy that's drafted on day 2 that is going to kind of show out over his first couple of years in the league. So, and develop into a really nice wide receiver.
Where are you at on
Actually,
Quentin Johnston? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Quentin
No,
Johnston, I want no part of. I don't want Quentin Johnston. I'm a Big 12 guy too. I don't want Quentin Johnston. I do not.
I feel like he's just gonna looking at the little bit that I watched of him. The ball gets way too close to him. He doesn't catch the ball with his hands like he needs to, and that scares the hell out of me. I feel like it's going to turn into a Will Fuller situation without the athletic ability.
Yeah, and then you have Hyatt. Where are you at on Hyatt?
I would, look at it on day 2. If he's there at 33 and they really feel like he could benefit, but it depends on who they take a quarter. If they take a quarterback, who they take a quarterback. If they get Bryce, then I don't see the benefit of having Hyatt because, no knock. It's a little bit of a knock on Bryce, but he doesn't have the deep ball that a guy like CJ or Levis has. And so it kind of defeats the purpose of having somebody that can get it, blow the top off of a defense like him.
Someone asks Sam35, what about Mims? I love Mims. I'm a big Mims guy. I think if Caleb Williams doesn't transfer, I think we're talking about Mims as like top 3 right now. I just kind of a I don't want to call it like a rough year last year because statistically he actually had more yards than he did the year before, but I think him and Caleb were pretty close to doing some pretty special things had he stayed, and then he kind of had to go through a hellish quarterback situation in Oklahoma. Where are you at on Mims?
I mean, yeah, day 2. I think he's pretty good. I have Ringo. Is it Ringo? I didn't. Damn. There's another wide. Yeah, I mean, I could see it. I'm not. He's not really high up, but like you said, it's this draft class for wide receiver is not great. It's a lot of wide receiver 2s and a lot of wide receiver 3s. I feel like
it's not great. The tight ends though, that's interesting. What if there's a situation where there's a tight end at 30, like available at 33, like whoever's the top tight end on their board? Does Schultz prevent you from taking like Dalton Kincaid or something?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, because a couple of these guys, and I know one name that they're really high on. And I think you're a pretty big fan of him too. But he's the top tight end on their board, and I'm pretty sure you're a big fan of him. So if he's there at 33, then I feel like that's going to be their move.
And I think they'll get creative, and I also think with the extra thirds and stuff, they're they're going to be active. They're going to move up. I wouldn't be surprised to see them either get back into the first or get back into the second after they pick at 33. I think they're going to be pretty active in that area. Do you think they're set at running back? I'm very running back guy. I defend the honor of the running backs. If the running backs wanted a union, I would be the head of the union. I would just defend them.
Yeah, but where are you taking a running back though? Are you a running back in the first kind of guy?
I would take Bijan at 12, and I would take Gibbs at 33.
I'm good with Gibbs at 33.
I would do that.
Bijan at 12.
I just think Bijan at 12, you're getting, especially if you're not going to take a quarterback, you're getting one of the best players in the draft. I mean, it depends what you think of him though. Like I understand like the distaste for running backs. I was talking to DJ about this, and DJ was texting, DJ Bianime was texting me like about this, and he's just like so anti-running back. So it's so disheartening. But he was talking about how the he was like, well, they don't get a second contract. And then I saw Peter King actually did this. He looked up that I think 31% from 14 to 17 got second contracts, and then it was like less than half there. So really, like, it just seems like sometimes we look for reasons not to take running backs, which I get. But if I don't think they need to like just get a running back. But if it's Bijan at 12, why the hell not? Screw it.
Let's go. I could see he's so athletic and he can do so much on the field. He doesn't have to just come out of the backfield. You can split him outside, use him in the slot. You can use him wide. So, I mean, if you really want to get creative, he could be your Debo for Slowick. I mean, he could fill that role. if that's the way they want to go. The running back in the first round thing just scares me just because of given the history of how they end up not working out
Yeah,
long
it
term.
does it does seem like when they don't work out, it's always like, it's about the position instead of, like if the Chiefs had drafted, I always said Chiefs had drafted Jonathan Taylor, then, we wouldn't have been talking about the running back. They just took the wrong one. I think they make the immediate impact. And when you have the luxury, I'm not opposed to it, but I feel you on that. The edge class right now, it's kind of interesting because if you don't, let's say they go quarterback, it's going to be pretty tough sledding edgewise. Do you believe?
Yeah, I mean, because there's a pretty steep drop off from guys like Anderson and then down to like Uzama and Van Ness. I'm not a huge fan of, but Miles Murphy, those guys are pretty good. I'm afraid of taking them in the 12 range just because I don't see they're not world beaters, man. But the hope would be that you whoever you do take at that position, that D'Amico and his staff can kind of turn into the weapons that they previously had out in San Francisco and build a pretty solid defense with them.
Yeah, and I wonder what D'Amico, like how much Bobby Slowick, like how much of a say he has, because you got to think it's big. Because when it's a defensive coach and it's a system that Slowick knows better than even the GM, like I mean, his influence has to be pretty high. Has to be.
Yeah, I mean,
Plus he's the film guy.
yeah, I mean, you would hope, right? Like he's your guy on offense, so you would hope that his input is going to be. There you go. Sorry, my daughter. You would hope that his input is heard equally as the same as the defensive side of the ball, just for the fact that he's the one in charge. He's got to be the one to be able to make that engine run. So
Where did the Texan GIF start online? The Texan GIF is kind of a thing that you've done very, very. You do it very strong. Your Instagram game and your social media like GIF type of game is strong. The Texan thing is kind of taken off to the point where I don't even know if I should take you effing serious anymore now because you're doing it with everybody. So I'm starting to just be like, okay, everyone just come down and be a Texan now.
yeah, I was texting with Sean the other day about it, and I was like, it's at the point where everybody thinks I'm serious about every single one of them, even though I'm not. I think it was Rap tweeted something one day, and the first reply that I saw was the Squidward one, but I think it was for the Dolphins, and it said Dolphin, and I was just like, I'm stealing the idea, and I'm gonna turn it around and just make it the Texans, and then Crumpler forwarded me like 5 or 6 different pictures that he had made up himself. And then Harley Dugan gave me a few as well. So it hasn't been an act on by myself. I've had some help from some friends.
You've perfected it. So that's where we're at on that. Let's get to some of the other questions. Tyler Olson wants to know, I'm here every second of it. Hopefully D'Amico and Nick pull us back into relevance to take us to new heights. Not necessarily a question. That's more so a comment. Birdie says Will Levis is him. If they take Will Levis number 2, like which would generate the more outrage? Will Levis at 2 or Tyree Wilson at 2?
Definitely Levis.
I think Levis would set bleep off. I don't know. That would be
people would be calling for Nick's job for sure.
Yeah,
Like
that would be.
There would be a huge outrage amongst the fans that they haven't seen yet.
Yeah, he hadn't seen that yet. Christopher talking about the 20% tweak. I don't think 20% of an adjustment is a lot actually as the remaining. I think it's really big. I think 20% is a decent tweak of a draft board. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they agree on everything else. It just means they feel strong enough to stick their chest out against the scouts that are like crunching tape 24/7 and doing all this stuff to where that's what they feel strong enough about. And then maybe the battles like at the draft, they increase, but 20% to just put it out there, I think that's a lot. Because they're not like going to pull out the red pen like your high school English teacher and just start like slicing it up. They're going to at least be maybe a little bit conservative.
Yeah.
713 Sports says he loves you. I think Ruben just loves everybody. He's
Ruben does love everybody. I'm surprised he hasn't called me right now.
Milds and that Cognac says if we go defense, they better pray that Stroud or Levis don't turn out to be stars because it would be a bad look on Nick and Ryan's. That's any pick though, right? I mean, that's if they go quarterback and then Will Anderson becomes the next Nick Bosa, then it's the same thing. That's anything. It's not just quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, look at some of the guys from last year. Like how many people passed on Woolen, and Woolen turned out to be a freaking, a stud. I get it was only year one, but how many he got passed over several times. So that's the draft, man. That's the beauty of it. That's the thing. You're gonna find guys that are just gonna end up, turning out to be world beaters, and then you're gonna have some guys that are just gonna fall off a cliff. It happens every year.
Function brings up Mahomes. Remember all the people who said Mahomes was a bum and we needed Watson. Sounds like Levis haters now. I mean, I wouldn't compare. I don't think it's like that similar because I
think it's
the
different.
Mahomes and Watson thing was kind of split. Like it was like some people liked Mahomes upside. I think O'Brien, like a lot of people thought O'Brien liked Mahomes a little bit more. I don't know anyone who says Will Levis is as good as CJ Stroud or Bryce Young or, and the AR-15 thing goes back and forth. I don't think it's that similar.
Yeah, I mean, there's some people that are giving Will the benefit of the doubt just because of the offensive line was just historically bad, but I don't think that's enough to prop him up to 2.
Oh,
I can't believe it.
TJ says that the Manning brother episode just came out with Levis. I'm gonna check this out. That was my one thing with the Manning thing because I watched it. I was crying as I was watching them talk about Bryce Young. I do wonder because it was their first episode if they're like John Gruden and they just like every quarterback, or if they just love Bryce Young that much. So I'm definitely gonna have to check out that Levis thing.
Well, I mean, he's been to Bryce was at the Manning camp for how many years, so they've had an ongoing relationship for a long time. But Levis has too, so we'll see.
All right, so if the Texans don't draft a quarterback, then what would your ideal situation be at QB? What would you do? Would you want to roll with Mills? Would you want a Mills Keenum comp?
Damn, that's so hard, man. That's like I don't know if I can do a third year of Mills, but then do I want to revisit Keenum? It's like I hate the idea of having to take a quarterback just to take a quarterback, but I mean, yeah, if they don't take a quarterback and they go with a guy like Anderson, then I have a feeling it's going to be Mills year 3. Or on the outside shot that Keenum beats him out of camp, but
Levis at 7. The Lance Zerline mock lives on. What is how did you feel about the Zerline mock that had a lot of people upset? Why do people take mock so serious?
it's the entire point is the name is mock, right? Like it's fake. It's not real. Just it's people throwing stuff together. I love doing them just because they're fun. And of course, Lance has been, that's his job. So I don't know why people get so bent out of shape over it. He always, every year, he throws out one that's just a little bit, that's got to be different. That's not the cookie cutter mock that everybody else is doing. So
yeah, it's just kind of a little bit of a little bit of a path. I know he's always used the word like path. It's a path towards a route of something going on. So I don't know. How do you feel about Darnell Washington? That's like the 4th Darnell Washington comment. It just seems kind of like when they would take him would be. I mean, you'd probably have to get him in one of your first 3 picks. Like he's going 2nd round, I would think.
Yeah, I think you had to be one of the guys that if they get aggressive and they could trade back up into the 2nd round, maybe. But I mean, he's an athletic freak. We've seen it. There was that other kid at Georgia. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I feel like he just kind of got outshined that I wouldn't mind taking a look at as well. I mean, I get it. He's he's got the talent, he's got the ability. I just feel like there's other guys that are a little bit better that I would rather take at 33.
Do you like any quarterbacks late? The Brock Purdy. Now all of a sudden people are going to be talking about this. Ernest talking about Stetson, Bennett. I'm good on that. I don't want Johnny Boyzell. I'm good on that. I don't want any part of that guy.
None
What
whatsoever.
about Hooker? Hooker's been kind of like a weird. I don't think he goes first round. Like I'm not buying this Hooker going first round. I get like kind of like a sense of like Malik Willis type hype where I think he falls down. I'm not saying that I think he sucks or anything like that, but if you're, I just don't see first round. I feel like people are. This is the Deshaun Kaiser example that I used earlier, where I just don't see Hooker going as early. And McLean put him in his mock draft, and McLean just came out and said, "I was just trying to be different," like just flat out admitted it. So I just don't.
It feels very agent driven, and a lot of that. There's a lot of that goes on at this time of the year, right? I keep saying it's lying season, and a lot of this hype that you'll see some of these guys like Matt Miller and those guys do is a lot of it's agent driven. That just it's transactional. They ask them to kind of hype up that name and try to push them up the board. So I feel like that's what this is.
This Trey Lance, thoughts on Trey Lance? Shout out to Darian.
Man, Cole had me convinced on it for a little while, right? But
Thompson knows his ball. Thompson knows his ball for sure.
Yeah, but then I got to thinking, like, if Brock Purdy is really going to miss the entire year, are the 49ers really about to trade away their only viable quarterback that they have on their roster right now? And if they are, it's the same thing we talked about earlier. Like, if you're the in-division trade, like, if you're not really worried about the guy, then you let him go. If San Francisco is willing to let him walk, then there's something up with it.
Yeah, that was my thing is if with everything they gave up, with how much they need, like even a good backup quarterback has a ton of value for them. If they're willing to give up on him, then there's something wrong with them. And B. Scott countered, well, I don't trust Kyle Shanahan's quarterback evaluation, which brought up like a whole new type of thing, which I mean,
Yeah.
I guess if we want to nitpick old Shanny, I think we could agree with that. Maybe John Crumpler. I don't know if you're serious or not. Carson Wentz. It would be a viable tanking strategy. Slap yourself, man. By the way, he asked me. I'm not an anti-bow tie guy. I'm an anti-crooked bow tie guy, and looking to the side and leaning to the side. That's what I'm
Is it crooked?
talking about.
It is.
Yeah,
I think John is. I think John's a little stressed out with everything he's got going on at school right now. I think he needs to log off for a day or two and get some rest.
Yeah, his bow tie looks like Nolan
it.
Ryan. His bow tie looks like Nolan Ryan's smile, man. Kind of like the little lean. What's the price for Mac Jones? That's the question. It depends if New England gets a quarterback or not. I'm not dismissing them from Lamar Jackson. Like I'm not close to dismissing New England, although I do think that the Hurts deal might make the Lamar, like you at least have a realistic starting point instead of the Deshaun deal. What would the price be for Mac Jones if they don't draft a quarterback? What would you pay?
Maybe a second, and not this year. It had to be a future second. Like that's asking a lot.
I don't want to use the word tanking anymore either. Like, can we not?
They're not.
Use the word
they're absolutely trying to be competitive. You're not paying guys like Ridgeway $10 million a year if you're not trying to be competitive.
And you can win some games. I mean, that will be the sales pitch. I'm going to do a video tomorrow with the sales pitch. It's actually hilarious because I made the thumbnail before, and it was before Nick Caserio referenced Wolf of Wall Street today. But I made it's Leonardo DiCaprio holding the pen, and it says "Sell me this pick," and it's Nick, and then he goes and drops the Wolf of Wall Street. So now it looks like I'm piggybacking off of him, and I actually had that correct. Cody says that you suck at fantasy football. Is this a fact? Because a lot of people that know ball do suck at fantasy football.
Yeah, man, I'm terrible at it. We're in a dynasty league together, and I took over like an abandoned team that was just god awful, and I'm stuck with Aaron Rodgers as my quarterback. And I think Cody's probably mad because I've fleeced him out of his first round pick last year, and so and it turned into Damian Pierce. So I came away pretty good on that one.
Okay, it's a little dynasty action, a little Damian Pierce action. I see you. Kind of
Yeah.
like Damian Pierce being kind of a under the radar Browns draft pick, which we don't talk about enough. We talk about Kenyon Green and whatnot, but we do not talk about that. Patrick, I appreciate you, man. I know you got kids running around. I know you're a baseball dad. You do your thing on social media. I appreciate you for coming through, doing your thing, giving me some of your time, and following the squad. Tell the people where they can follow that work, and the Texan thing. And I think you need to do a Carson Wentz Texan thing when we sign off here. Just keep it going.
Golly, no way. My Twitter's right there. It's at Patrick Storm HTX. I've got a Substack that I do some periodic writing on. That the link's into my bio on my Twitter, and then I've got an Instagram that's Texan Storm Report. That's where this whole thing started, man. Rolling around 23,000 followers right now. So
That's the game strong, man. The graphics and
yeah,
stuff, it's very easy. Like, it's very easy. Like, I actually it's easier to follow that than, like, all the crap on Twitter where, like, this person reports this person reported it last. It's just it's like a visual. It's like someone like me that likes pictures with books. Like,
yep.
it's nice, man. Very, very strong.
Appreciate it. And I
Very
appreciate you
strong.
having me on, man.
Yeah, I appreciate
So.
you, brother. Keep doing your thing, and I'll see you on the Twitter sphere, and fun times ahead, man. Tomorrow when you wake up, we'll be single digit days away from this thing, man. So it's fun times. It's at least the good thing is no matter what they do, it's more fun than it's been the last 2 years. That's the only guarantee I can make. It'll be better than it was
100%.
the last 2 years. So better days are ahead. I appreciate you, my friend.
Adios, man.
There you go. That's Patrick Storm here in the locker room. Follow him. He really does do his thing. The Instagram game is strong. Appreciate everyone for rolling through single digit days. I'm telling you, Brandon Pimpson, when you think about it that way, we're on single digit days. Number 9, throwback Dan Marley. Throwback. What do we want to go? We want to go Tony Romo. Throwback 9, Shane Leckler. Anybody? Yeah, it's a big one. So I said I had some announcements for the channel. We've got Storm to start it off. He batted leadoff like Ricky Henderson. Tomorrow, I might not get a word in. We'll get to this Levis stuff tomorrow. I'm kind of holding off on that. John Harris is going to join me tomorrow. John Harris, not the Texans radio version, the My Bro John Harris version. Always talking, always chatty, crunching tape. The John Harris special tomorrow. He's going to come through and join me. And then I got another special later on this week. Going to connect on this Wednesday morning. Not sure when I'm going to drop it, but I'm going to get Gary Kubiak with me. Gary Kubiak's going to join me. The classiest mofo in Texans history. He's got the nice tan going. He just went to the Masters. Kubiak's going to join me, and we're going to talk about team building. He's done all the generic interviews about D'Amico Ryans, but Koob is going to come through, and Koob is going to talk about team building. How much stock do you put in a pro day? How much do you talk about like experience? How important is the quarterback? Do people oversimplify this Shanahan system? What do we think about Bobby Slowick? All that type of stuff. And you can get your asses in your Gary Kubiak questions in. Send them to @Landry Locker. You can DM me if you want to get a question in for Kubiak. Let me know. And I appreciate everyone for coming through. It's a fun time to be alive. It's a fun time to cover this squad. So appreciate Pat for coming through, and we'll hear from John Harris tomorrow, and we're going to hear from Kubiak as well. No matter what happens, though, just remember, fellas, ladies, dogs, cats, all that, whatever the hell else Manny Fresh says. When it comes to this Texans game, we are all in this together.
Things to give without takeaways. If it's then it's up, we number one. You don't need to try your luck. Locker room, yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize every angle's what we really do. We the source, we the pulse of the city too.